I think of all those cool things we want out of the business as like byproducts of doing what's actually important, which is building a really great business. So like for me, it's like in the next 12 months, how much can we improve the product from where it is? I already think it's the best in the market for its thesis, but can we make it even better? Can we make the user experience even better, from purchasing it to getting it in the mail or in the store, to when you open it up, to when you use it, to the communication of education and inspiration from us in between, to the customer service if you need it. Operationally, can we make this business just like super efficient from a cash flow standpoint? Can we improve margins? Can we cut waste? Can we find efficiencies in everything? From a marketing awareness standpoint, can we be the best at creating awareness and demand in a really cool way where like learn about this and get inspired, and it has cultural relevance? I just think of how can we do those things the absolute best with the timeline and the resources. And if we do that, we have the best chance of getting the results we want.
Sean Hall, man, it is so amazing to have you on the pod here today. You and I met at our Basel at a really wonderful event called Founder Made. A lot of like up and coming brands, beautiful pool, blue skies. But of course, Wellious was like one of the top brands at this event. Everybody wanted to talk to you, whole crowd of people. I'm really glad that you and I got a chance to connect. How was Art Basel for you? Give me a grade.
Yeah, no, highlight was definitely meeting you. And then, luckily for people listening, Max is a good extrovert, and he made it seem like I was cool there, but he came up and talked to me. Otherwise, I probably would have minded my own business. So, thankful for people like him. But yeah, it's cool. That was my second time down there. Both times, no crazy agenda, just kind of being there in the mix, and got to hang out with a few founder friends that I usually just see virtually. Got to see them in person. Got to go to some events and spend time with friends, and yeah, it was fun.
Cool. That's awesome. So tell me more about Wellious. I mean, of course I know, but like, tell me again, everything about the product.
Yeah, so Wellious, I've been an entrepreneur for a bit, but a few years ago, I had some personal health stuff come up, got extra conscious about what I was consuming, and realized that my protein powder, which was, supposedly this health product I was using every day, was filled with all of these ingredients I was trying to avoid in junk food. And the more I dug into it, the scarier it got of realizing just how kind of, frankly, for me, harmful this product was because of all of these additives. And so, yeah, it just set me on this journey of becoming a total nerd about developing a protein powder that was truly clean, and ultimately developed Wellious, which is just 4 real food ingredients. It's plant-based. We call it farm to scoop. And, we also kind of simultaneously solve the problem of taste and texture for plant-based protein powders. I had used whey protein for a long time. It had always bothered my stomach. But when I had tried any plant-based protein powders, there was such a sacrifice in taste and texture that it just wasn't, it was worth having a stomach ache not to have them. So, but Wellious, truly taste and texture has been what's propelled us with customers so much. And there's a lot of other cool benefits. Obviously, we're actually higher protein per gram of calorie than some of the leading plant-based brands. But we also have the most fiber naturally in the product, a bunch of other micronutrients that are great for skin health and hair health. And so it's kind of an overall superfood as well, but primarily sells because it's just a super clean protein powder.
That is so cool. I just got to say, I did do a week of working out on Wellious, and I hit a new PR. So, I mean, it works. It works. Can you tell me how old you guys are?
Yeah, I started the brand. We kind of soft launched in like 2022.
Cool. Sweet. And then have you fundraised for the business?
We haven't officially, but if you ask me in a couple of weeks, that might be a different answer. So up to this point, pure bootstrap. I literally started it with $3,000 of savings, which was enough to buy the initial raw ingredients, did the first production run myself in a commercial kitchen, and really have grown off of profits, which is very rare in CPG. It's just a hard puzzle to solve of needing constant inventory. You can't really get terms or credit lines as an early business, and so you kind of need all this cash up front. And so yeah, it's been a big puzzle to solve, and done it with very little money. But it's created a we've had so much traction even with that and grown so much that it's made us a very investable business. So last couple months, I've been in kind of the raise process, and it's more or less done, but not official.
Super, super cool. We're gonna celebrate once it's all said and done. I'm gonna be over with a bottle of champagne. How much sales have you guys done, if you don't mind me asking, this past 12 months?
Yeah, I have to look at the year to date, but or the trailing 12. Right now we're at like a $2 to $3 million run rate.
So I just like want to express how freaking impressive that is as a CPG business. You guys are 2 years old, bootstrapped, $2 to $3 million run rate. That's insane. Like you guys are like absolutely a bona fide unicorn. I got to imagine that there's a lot of investors that are taking a key eye on you, and this fundraise process has been smooth sailing, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's weird because for me, like I've been telling people this for, a few years ago. I mean, I knew people fundraised, but I thought most people were doing it this way, honestly. And I've come to realize that most of the brands you see kind of accelerating at the pace we have brought in at least some money. And so it has been more surprising to me than anything that it is kind of a rare path. But yeah, as far as the fundraise, it's nice to see that venture funds and some of the most well-known ones are interested in a company that just has good fundamentals, because I think that's become the sentiment, at least in CPG, is like that's what it's transitioned from, not just like this growth at all costs thing. But when you look at the brands getting funded, it's still kind of the growth at all costs, major burn rate type of thing. So, hopefully for some entrepreneurs that are trying to do it like I did without a ton of resources, it's maybe a little inspiring that like there's a path to do it. And, that then there's a lot of funding on the other side of that.
Super, super cool. What do you think you're going to use the money for?
Yeah. So, to start, honestly just some wiggle room and a safety net that I haven't operated with, which is going to go a long way. It's cash on the balance sheet to leverage to even get like inventory financing. So that solves the kind of cash flow issue I was talking about. It's a safety net to make a couple hires. Another part of the story is the team is just me. And so we could afford to make a couple hires now within our budget, but without that safety net, like I just don't feel comfortable asking somebody to come, support their family with a salary that's like just there's no kind of safety net under. So it'll let me comfortably do that. Bring in a couple people on the ops side, someone on the marketing side, and then otherwise it's really growth capital. We're just like, as well as we've done at whatever run rate we're at, we could be significantly bigger if I was just able to keep my foot even slightly on the gas, let alone, really pressing on the marketing side. So, there's not plans to burn the money like crazy. It's just probably more like a solving for the short term of customer acquisition and having wiggle room to be able to do that, even though our lifetime value and retention is so high that like we just keep so many of the customers acquired and they keep buying every month, that it creates this profitable foundation. And right now it looks like it's hard to burn. Obviously we'll see that next level of business is certainly going to be different than it has been. So
super cool, man. I mean, there's so many like things about like the fundraising process and like the brand growth that I could talk about, but I want the overall theme of this episode to talk about your creative process and how you found product market fit with this CPG product. When I first had this conversation with you, I was floored, like absolutely jaw on the floor with how fast you like went from zero to the product basically that you have on the shelves today. Can you talk to me about your process? Like, how do you go from nothing to like, here's my protein powder?
yeah, I I got the idea. Obviously, it was kind of serendipitous out of something that was crappy. So, that kind of hit me. But as like it started to be like an idea of like, I want to make this product and it would solve a problem for myself. And I honestly, and at the beginning, it wasn't like, oh, there's a huge, TAM, total addressable market size. Like this is a like I didn't think of any of that stuff. Really, I was just like, I use it every day. I know people use protein powder. Like there needs to be something better. But once that stuck in my head and I thought about it as a product or a brand, I really, it just consumes me. And I enjoy the process of becoming a complete nerd about it. And so, and it became this huge problem to solve. I was like, this must be simple. Why are there all these ingredients in this product? Like, I'll just take them out and I'll leave it as that. But you quickly realize, like, no, these are used because it's 100 times cheaper than the natural sweetener or the real flavor that we use versus the artificial flavor that everyone else uses. And um, I just like started to have this huge problem I needed to solve of the protein source that was going to be not whey, but still tasted great and had great texture. The sweetener source that was natural, the flavoring source that was natural, combining those in a way that, had the right nutritional profile and then was going to cost out to still be a viable business idea. And so it just like that, talking through that, like, that's so fun for me. Like, here's this weird, crazy problem to solve. And like, I was having meetings with people who have been in like the vanilla industry for their family for like 80 years or something, just learning about vanilla, like as much as I could, and figuring out how we could do it with real extracts versus, the natural flavoring that people use, which is just made from anything. Um, and so, yeah, I think it's just like, it was just a lot of passion and just constantly like you start building, hey, this is what I need to get to. And um, started making a lot of iterations in the kitchen, learning so much about ingredients, creating relationships with raw ingredient suppliers, and slowly got towards, what I wanted the product to be. And then in the back of my head too, I was thinking of like the brand and the look, and came to the name and kind of what the packaging might look like. Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, I think it was from like inception to having a final product was like maybe 3 months, 3.5 months, which is pretty quick. And most food founders, maybe not most, but a lot of people don't develop the product themselves. I'm really glad I did, but that probably lets me move faster in a way, even though like I'm not an expert in the stuff. I had developed food products previously, but it's like if you're working with a food scientist, maybe it's a week in between, one email and this, and like this, since I did it all, it's just like I could just move as fast as I was willing to work.
It's super, super cool. Most CPG businesses that I've talked to and worked with in the past, it takes them a whole year or more to get to, where you're at with Wellious. So it's super cool. I mean, one of the things that I think is truly remarkable is the branding. Like when you come to Wellious's site, it's clear that it's not whey protein, and it's clear it's not some of these other products on the shelves. It looks clean. It looks fun. Was that literally like just good intuition on your part? Like you were like, okay, I'm going to go in this direction with the brand, and it worked almost immediately? Or was there a few iterations?
I don't know. It's one of those things that's like part art, part science, and probably more art in this case. Um, it kind of just came from me. Like I did, all the design there. And I think I wanted, from more of a technical standpoint, I wanted something that looked different. I wanted something that stood out. I wanted it to be a departure from the hyper masculine giant red tub of protein that sits, on top of your fridge. I thought that really speaks to, almost no one. Like even as a dude who's in the gym 5 days a week, and that's a lot of my friends. Like a lot of the branding that was out there in the sports nutrition world just like doesn't represent the modern wellness consumer. I think that's another side. I wanted this brand to be a wellness brand. It wasn't like a gym brand, a sports nutrition. It was for people who are prioritizing how they feel and their health, what they're putting in their body, want to feel good overall, physically, mentally, etc. And so I think the visual representation of that for me turned out to be something that was more colorful and aesthetic and a little artsy, it definitely, like, it appeals to women for sure. We have a giant cohort of female customers. But I think it's like, again, for me, it's just like the modern wellness consumer who's maybe a little more mature in their thoughts of just like wanting to be healthy and feel good overall. If that answers.
It certainly appeals to me, Sean. I gotta say, you nailed it. Like the amount of times I walk into GNC and I just see all these shelves, it's like gorilla gains and like this big animal like flexing and lightning bolts coming out. And I'm like, okay, there's definitely some crazy chemicals in this that I'm like not gonna want to put in my body. So you really nailed it on that front. One of the other things I wanted to talk about, Sean, is in the early days, and even still today, I believe, you create a lot of your own content. So like you create TikToks, you create social media content. Talk to me about that. Was that like a new muscle that you had to learn, or was that something you had skill set for previously?
Yeah, me doing it all myself is probably somewhat a byproduct of being poor as a company. But no, I think I, as far as like organic content creation and distribution, I had a pretty strong background in it. One of my previous companies is a portfolio of publications around food and wellness. We did all kinds of blog, editorial content, recipe content, distributed across lots of different platforms, got tens of millions, hundreds of millions organic views, worked with major brands to run ad campaigns across our channel. So like skill set wise, it was very much in my wheelhouse. Now, me being in the content, which is a lot of the content that's performed well, are TikToks where I'm kind of telling my story or talking about it. And that was very uncomfortable. It still is. I'm just like, I'm really not that person. And like it feels cringy to me. And it was kind of a little bit of a hump to get over. The good thing is, like, once you do one video of yourself and your 5 good friends see it, that's like the worst case scenario. So the band-aid's ripped off. And from then on, now that is what it is. And I think I've come to appreciate it more than ever, even recently, that like there doesn't have to be a face and a person attached to the brand, but it certainly helps. Like we like rooting for people. I've watched like several documentaries recently of like in the sports world. And when you get to know someone a little bit and like their purpose, it makes you root for them and it makes you care. And it's like, doesn't matter what as a brand, like having a brand palette and a name, that only goes so far, and it can go plenty far. But like if there's also the founder's story and it's like mine, where there's real intention behind it, and I genuinely care about making something good at a small level and at a greater level, it gives you more of a reason to trust and root. And I as a consumer would enjoy that. So even though it's uncomfortable at times, I'm happy that I've kind of placed myself there.
I experienced something very similar, Sean, to you. Seriously, I read a book back in college called The Third Wave by Steve Chase. He was the longtime CEO of AOL. And he has a passage. He's like, being a great CEO is just an exercise in being yourself. And when I read that for the first time, I was like, that's some fortune cookie garbage. Like, who cares? It's such a platitude. Looking back on it, I just finished raising my pre-seed round. That was like maybe the most important quote of any CEO I've ever read. Like you being genuine and charismatic and yourself and talking about your story. It feels like everything in the early days,
Yeah. And to cut in there, that's something I've been thinking about a lot too, and in this raise process, and I'm almost glad that for me, I waited till now to do it. I'm just more mature in my thought process, like, which really just translates to confidence to be yourself. It's like, I've taken the business far enough that like I felt myself in that process, which like, it's a weird process, but I didn't need to like BS or try to cater towards what they might want to hear or like what you hear works. Like I would just give my genuine thoughts and thesis based on my experience and based on what I think. And, sometimes that's contrarian to what VCs might want to hear, or what you're supposed to say. But I think that it ultimately resonated as like, this person has their own vision, they're genuine, they stick to their thoughts, they have integrity to just tell the truth. And, it must have got across in some way because of how many people were interested in participating.
Yeah, it's super cool. Was there any part of like the brand building element, especially in the earliest days, that you were like surprised worked or surprised didn't work?
Yeah, I remember, I was trying stuff and it was all pretty scrappy because it was low budget. Um, I remember having thought, I remember at one point making like this Venn diagram of like stuff that's scalable from like a marketing growth standpoint and stuff that really works. And then I had a middle section trying to figure out, what's scalable and works. And very few things fell in that middle section. And so I was surprised that like, I think this is a general thing that most people would be surprised about. Like certain things, we've had really cool stuff happen for Wellious from like a brand and equity and marketing side, like celebrities requesting the product, and huge influencers posting about us, and like we got written up in Vogue recently, and like just random cool stuff that's happened completely organically. They moved the needle very little, like individually. Collectively, obviously, it's been important. But I think I remember like we'd get posted about by somebody and I'd even like tell my parents about it, or they'd see it on Instagram and they'd be like, like your life's about to change. Like this is insane. And it's like, yeah, we got 40 sales from that. Uh, and so it's like, I think people don't realize it takes a lot. Like in CPG, creating awareness, there's so much content out there. There's so many brands. There's like attention spans are tiny. To truly create awareness and have that translate into demand for something that no one's ever heard of before and no one gives a crap about takes a lot of awareness and a lot of powerful awareness, like influential awareness. And so, and the brands winning and scaling fast, like people don't realize how much spend is going into that, the robustness of those programs. They see some influencer stuff, but it's like, oh yeah, they seeded to 1,000 people. And, then you saw the 20 posts and then they put $600,000 behind those 20 posts to get them seen by, millions of people over and over again. So I think it's just an important lesson that like, you got to be ready to like spread this thing, like crazy. If you actually want to get the momentum. The nice thing is, I think as we've gotten bigger, it starts snowballing and it starts becoming like easier for sure. And really, I think for us, it's based on like now we have thousands of customers that are diehard, and like some of them are just normal people who tell their parents and their friends and whoever, and like that just becomes its own network effect. And some of them are giant influencers who have huge audiences and they tell their audiences about it. But either way, it just like starts becoming this amplification effect. And that's been surprising, honestly, how much people want to talk about Wellious. Like it's obviously a hope, and I knew people would like it in general, but like the level of affinity for it has been surprising, obviously in the best way possible, but genuinely surprising because I don't really talk about products like that passionately. And so seeing people do that has been really cool.
Super cool. So how many sales did you get when I posted it to my 1,000 followers on Instagram? Was it like, millions and millions of dollars of inflow?
I think it was 1,000 sales. I think every one of your followers did buy it.
Every single one. Perfect. Okay. Fantastic. I'm expecting a commission on that, by the way. It's super, super cool, man. So what does like the future look like for Wellious? Is there like one kind of milestone in particular that you're gunning for in 2025?
There are, you have to set like revenue goals and whatnot and work backwards, but whether it's 2025 or the future, and not to sound like a PR answer, but this is something I genuinely believe and think about more and more than ever, is like, it's less about gamifying. Okay, this is where we want to get to revenue to be able to do XYZ, and then, eventually do that at a level where you can exit. I think of all those things, all those cool things we want out of the business as like byproducts of doing what's actually important, which is building a really great business. So like for me, it's like, in the next 12 months, how much can we improve the product from where it is? I already think it's the best in the market for its thesis, but can we make it even better? Can we make the user experience even better, from purchasing it to getting it in the mail or in the store, to when you open it up, to when you use it, to the communication of education and inspiration from us in between, to the customer service if you need it. Operationally, can we make this business just like super efficient from a cash flow standpoint? Can we improve margins? Can we cut waste? Can we, find efficiencies in everything? From a marketing and awareness standpoint, can we be the best at creating awareness and demand in a really cool way where like people learn about this and get inspired, and it has cultural relevance? And so like, I just think of how can we do those things the absolute best with the timeline and the resources. And if we do that, we have the best chance of getting the results we want. And then, it results being sales and retention and all that kind of stuff. And if those things all look good, then you have real optionality.
Super, super cool. That's awesome, man. So I'll just say this, obviously my passion is finding ways for brands to reach gamers, reach new audiences through gaming. One of the things that I was really passionate about was actually, I played esports for my college, the University of Michigan. We won a championship there. And one of our secret weapons was actually working out. Not a lot of esports teams do this, but we were a club sport and they made us work out like actual club sport athletes. I think it's really interesting. Like, a lot of people think gaming is like this kind of lazy person's hobby and it's sedentary for sure. But I really think like the overlap between gaming and working out in the gym is actually quite similar. Working out in and itself is kind of a game. I'm kind of curious, Sean, if you think about the overlap between, fitness and gaming, and how do we make sure that gamers stay healthy even in 2025 and beyond as gaming becomes more and more in vogue, so to speak?
Honestly, something I haven't thought about too much, but it is super, interesting conversation. Yeah, I think my mind goes to that. Like, I think everybody, like, wellness is a facet for everybody. Like, all of us have like, relationships, our work and our passion, but wellness is certainly in there because nothing else is really possible or enjoyable if you feel like crap physically or mentally. And so, whatever you spend a lot of time doing, some people like are truly passionate about the wellness side, and it's like they want to spend a lot of time working out and outdoors and pushing themselves physically. But a ton of people don't, and they just want to do enough to feel good. And I think both versions are great. As long as you're actually healthy and you feel good internally, externally, it doesn't need to look the same for everyone. And finding your passion and spending time on doing stuff you love ultimately makes you happy, and that's like probably the best wellness of all. But yeah, I mean, I think I honestly don't game much as an adult, but I think there's just like a version of stuff I do a lot, which like is a mental exercise. I spend a lot of time doing things that are more mental workouts than anything. And then, obviously gaming, I think simultaneously can be relaxing and leisure, which is like, I spend a lot of time watching, like, for me, the best way to disconnect is watching like a movie or something like that. It's like when I can turn my brain off a little. So, assuming gaming kind of solves both of those things simultaneously, you're getting a little bit of a mental workout and getting to disconnect a little bit, which is really cool. I remember playing a lot of games in college and before, and it's hard to turn them off, which would probably be, and my girlfriend's family, big big gamers do it. Some do it professionally, some just do it enough to be professional. They love it, computer and console. And they, I think there's definitely a balance of being like, are you doing it too much? Is it like, like I said, I remember even as someone who isn't crazy passionate about it, like, I mean, I can play for 5-6 hours, no problem. So, like anything, setting discipline around it and making sure you're doing, you're getting up and moving and stuff like that is probably important. But yeah, no, fascinating conversation for sure.
People might be surprised to know about me because I'm like Mr. Gaming, but I'm a big like proponent of what you just said, Sean. It's like you can absolutely overgame and it can kind of affect your performance in the gym or in, back in the real world. I'm curious, like, you say movies is kind of your big like disconnect therapy, relaxation. What advice would you offer to people who maybe spend a little too much time on their like relaxation station, however you want to think about that, and want to spend more time getting their booty to the gym?
Always like starting is the hardest part. Like if you get consistent with something like the gym, enough so where you like see these changes in yourself, whether it's the way you look or like getting stronger is such like a empowering thing. Even if you fall off that, like you're likely to get back to it because it's a real, like, it does something to your brain where you're like, man, I liked when I was like pushed myself as something that was really uncomfortable, stayed consistent with it, and then like saw some kind of result that I thought was a little impossible at some point. Like I just didn't picture myself as that. And that was like, I was always a really active kid. I played a lot of sports and stuff and did a lot of different stuff, but like the gym specifically, it wasn't until college that I like actually, went and stayed on a consistent like weightlifting program. And yeah, it really like I always attribute it to changing me in a positive way of like, I was kind of like, a lot of things were easy for me as a kid, but I was kind of lazy about like consistent disciplined work because I was like, I'm pretty good at all this stuff without doing that. And so I think doing the gym where it's like, especially when you start at a big gym and you're like not that strong yet or something, is an uncomfortable kind of place. Like you don't feel super comfortable. I didn't. But after even a few months, like, I don't know, you're like, man, look at this results. And so I think pushing yourself over that initial hump and just like setting a plan and being like, I'm going to do this uncomfortable thing 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week for the next 4 months, regardless of what results I start seeing, regardless of how uncomfortable it is. I think it's a really good exercise for anyone. And I think it's similar to entrepreneurship. Like, I think a lot of people have these aspirations of like starting their own thing, but it's like, don't worry about the result or if you fail or whatever. Like, take 4 months and put in consistent work to something, and like you'll have created something that wasn't there before. And if you do it in a way that like even generates one sale or someone thinks it's cool or like whatever it is, like, man, that changes your brain. You start being like, just consistent work is the delta between not doing something and doing something that I've thought about doing for a long time.
Literally at the very top of your answer, like when you talked about, pushing through the pain and doing things, accomplishing things that you once thought were impossible, my mind immediately went to entrepreneurship. I was like, this is the same freaking thing. So much of it is about perseverance.
For sure.
Sean, I'm a big gamer. You're a big competitor. And this is kind of a game marketing podcast. I'm curious. I'd like to play a little podcast game with you. Okay. Called Hot Seat. Have you played this before? Do you know what this game is, potentially?
Mm-hmm.
No?
Yeah.
Okay, you're flying into this super blind. Uh-huh. How it works is I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock, and I'm going to ask you rapid fire questions, and I want you to answer them honestly. They're going to be kind of some tough balls in there. You can pass. You can always pass on a question, but if you do pass, you have to do an extra 10 push-ups in the gym next time you're there. And you have to record it and send it to me, okay?
Cool.
Does that sound like a good plan?
It sounds good. I'm this. I'm a contextual answerer, so it's gonna be hard for me to keep them short, but I'll try.
You don't have to keep it short. You can do a long-winded stuff. Okay. But we'll put 5 minutes on the clock starting now. Okay. Um, Sean, is there a moment in the Wellious career in particular where you really wanted to quit but didn't?
No, not in Wellious. Um, it's felt right the whole time as a culmination of years before, um, doing something that's just like I've believed in the product and the general mission since the beginning, and I've made decisions to do everything with a lot of just integrity and purpose, and like um, that's always felt good. Tons of hard days for sure, shitty days that I say like I think I'm retiring, but never actually wanted to quit.
Do you have a person in your life that, like, when you have one of those shitty days, you go to and you can lean on them?
Yeah, my girlfriend, partner, we've been together 10 plus years, has supported me since very beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. And, more than anything, we're both kind of deep thinkers and just love a really long conversation of getting down to it, and not scared to kind of talk about or through anything. And so, yeah, I mean, without that, it'd be tough.
What do you think is the biggest weakness you have as a founder, and how do you get over it?
Yeah, I'm sure I have tons. But like I definitely, I have plenty of strengths, but I'm certainly bad at a lot of things. One, I'm not very extroverted, and like, if we meet, we'll have great conversation. I've always had like a ton of friends and stuff like that. But, if I have to like go up to people and shout something from the rooftops, like it's really hard for me. So I'm envious of founders who are really good at that, because that's a huge advantage. And then I'm pretty bad at asking for help. I just don't feel entitled to anything, or like, people want to help you, which is a good lesson, but I'm like, I don't want to ask them to spend their time, energy towards my thing. I've gotten better at it, but it's still easier for me to just take it on myself.
Yeah. If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about Wellious or entrepreneurship in general, you could do anything. You could make the sky purple. What would you do and why?
I guess keep it simple. Maybe I'll focus on Wellious. I don't know. I'm a weird person who likes the like difficulty of it. Um, actually, I'd wave it and say I'm not sure how to phrase it, but like a lot of things that go wrong that are just like shouldn't go wrong. Like we've had a big run of 10,000 bags made, and then found out like 100 of the bags, the seal wasn't fully done. And so they opened up in transit or something like that. Or, one time our co-packer forgot to put the scoops in to all the bags and had already sealed them. And, we have to pretty much do the whole run again. And, that's part of it for sure. And if it wasn't there, a lot more people would do entrepreneurship, but if there wasn't that stuff, it'd be a lot easier and more fun.
Yeah. Do you have a muscle group in the gym, Sean, that, like, that's your worst day? Like, you just don't want to do legs or something?
Hmm. I've learned to like them all. Definitely, like when I was probably 21, starting to work out, I didn't really do legs, but then I kind of fell in love with like deadlifting stuff. I have to go lighter with it these days because I'm old, and I've pulled my back a handful of times. Um, but no, I kind of, my split is like chest and tries, then back and buys, then legs, then a shoulder day, and I like them all for different reasons.
I really wanted to, like, stump you with a question, Sean, but I really don't think I'm going to do it here coming up on the last 30 seconds. But maybe I'll end it here. Like, what would be like a dream scenario of Wellious? Like, you sell it to X company for billions of dollars.
Yeah, I think if in like, however many years it is that I'm a little like, okay, I'm ready for my next thing, whether that's 4 or 10 or whatever, um, that we could sell it in a way that, felt really good. I say this all the time. I'm not that financially motivated. So it's like, if we're doing that, it's probably a very, very small portion of the money that I actually need to be happy. And anything else is going to be more feel like a responsibility to do something important with. Um, But if it was like, if it just felt good, I enjoyed the crap out of the journey, didn't really have regrets, then got to tie a kind of a bow on it. And it was going somewhere where people would have it live on, and, it wouldn't be me anymore. So like, do what you want with it as long as it remained at good, like, standards. Hopefully we can set such a precedent of like, this is how you should do business. This should be the product quality. This is how you should treat people. And that almost has to maintain, or they'd have to kill the brand. That would probably feel good.
You passed hot seat with flying colors. I don't know what to say. No extra push-ups for you, so
Those are
you get
easy
a gold
ones, man.
star.
I'm gonna come up with some hot seat questions for you. We'll do that.
Yeah, let me know, man. Anytime. Happy to do it. Sometimes me and my friends do that over a beer too, and the punishment is you take a little swig. But is that I was going to ask you about kind of everything beyond Wellious. Like, do you think that there was a moment in time, like earlier in your life, that you knew you were entrepreneurial, and Wellious was just an extension of that, or is this like totally by happen chance you stumbled onto this?
I think so. I think it's always hard to like think of myself as a kid without, I don't know, your own bias and your own like thoughts about it. But I think probably the people, my family and people that knew me since a young age would say that like I always did things a little differently. I was always a little, or at times very rebellious. Um, Thought about things a little differently, liked stuff that were creative challenges. So a lot of stuff that I think would have lended to a decent chance of me taking a semi alternative career path. And then I think I probably got more practical as like towards the end of high school and into college, where I don't know, I could have definitely, I was a waiter a lot in college, and I remember thinking like, this is good money. Like, while I go figure out what the next thing is, like I could move to any city and like always do that. And then when I started to have the idea with a friend to start my first business right out of college, the idea of doing it and it just being like our own thing, and like obviously at that age didn't really need much money, so the risk was really low. But the idea of just like working on your own thing with the incentive being for you, and man, that was exciting, and I definitely really wanted to do it. And then as we did it, quickly realized, hey, I'm capable of doing this, at least at a small scale. And yeah, for me now, I've completely fallen in love with it. And even like as a kid, I had lawn business, or like, would do some things that were like to make your own money type of thing. But now like truly doing it, and through Wellious, like I'm definitely just totally in love with entrepreneurship, and the challenge of it. It gives my mind a purpose and a challenge that just feels kind of evergreen. And I definitely want some version of that probably for my whole life, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that you and I talked about in Miami a lot, Sean, was about traveling. You and I are both big travelers, love to go different places. You love to travel with your partner. I'm kind of curious, like how do you grade your travel experience? Like, what is the criteria for what you look for in a vacation?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my partner, she's like, it's like her top bucket list thing is just traveling all over. And so she pushes me more, and even in those trips to do more for sure. But I, I probably shouldn't admit it, but we're kind of spoiled. She works for a major hotel company, and so we've gone to travel really cool places at really affordable rates, even when we were like, pretty young. And you quickly get spoiled by really nice accommodations when you're staying at a place that's sometimes $1,500 a night, and you're staying there for $50 a night. It's a pretty cool perk, but you also are like, this is nice, and I don't want to stay at somewhere not as nice the next time. So I love, like we love our trips to Maui and Hawaii, and it's a nice balance of like pretty comfortable accommodations, and that just feels good. Like there's a certain, for me, I get some travel anxiety and have like health anxiety in general. So being like really far from home sometimes is like I almost need it to feel a little comfortable and homey to just like enjoy it more. But then we can piece out from where we're staying and go adventure and do, you know, we'll do these long hikes and we'll go up the volcano and I'll go surfing and you know, we'll go explore all over. And so that's really cool where like if I feel like I'm somewhere totally different, the culture is kind of different. Like I really liked Barcelona a lot. Just places that feel like I'm somewhere different is really cool. Obviously, if there's like beautiful scenery like there is in Hawaii, that's just like amazing. I'm a huge nature person. I grew up surfing, so that's like, you know, bucket list stuff. But along with a little bit of comfort and luxury is my ideal.
I'm just thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, does your girlfriend have any single coworkers that she can set me up with? Like that's that sounds amazing. Yeah. Can I say this, Sean? One of the things that I think is so fascinating when I travel is how different everyone's relationship is to working out. Like I know like Europe, like protein powder is a relatively new thing. Like it wasn't really like big in Europe for a long time when I was growing up. I think that's changing now. But do you sell like overseas anywhere? And if so, what was that experience like?
We don't yet. So we don't really ship international. I have shipped to like individual people, influencers and stuff, but we just don't like, haven't had it set up to totally ship international. But we get a dozen plus emails every week asking, do you ship to the UK? Do you even a ton to Canada? But all over Australia, all over the world. So yeah, I honestly haven't dug into it that much, like to understand the market, but I know that there's obviously some general demand, and maybe if it is, you know, a newer category, because even in the US where it's not at all, there's so many competitors. We're still super standing out because of how clean and good the product is. That, you know, somewhere abroad we might be like, you know, a really good choice because I'm sure there's a similar wellness movement and in a lot of those places. Even like UK has stricter standards on food in general. But yeah, you know, I think international expansion will certainly be part of the plan at some point, especially from like a shipping standpoint. But you know, been barely able to keep up with just the local demand. So haven't spent much time understanding the market too much.
Makes a ton of sense. Well, if you need me to go out to the gyms over there and like table for you and get Europeans to try your product, you know, just set me up with some good hotel accommodations. Sounds like you guys got that figured out. Um, Wrapping up here, Sean, final two questions. I gotta ask number one, how can our listeners find you online?
Yeah, so definitely follow the brand at wellious.co on like TikTok, Instagram. It's me running the account, so you know, you can connect with the brand or myself. And then for me personally, you know, semi-active on LinkedIn. If you're in the industry, feel free to connect or send me a DM there. I just look up Sean Hall Wellious, and you'll probably find it.
Amazing. Cool. First of all, I'll just say this. I follow the brand on Instagram and you'll never regret that follow. It's such a cool, you know, brand, a lot of colorful tips and stuff in the gym and, you know, inspiring messages. So, I've enjoyed following you guys. And, final question. Typically I always ask my guests, Sean, what is 3 video games that you recommend that they play? But I think for you, it's going to be a lot more interesting if I ask, what is an exercise that maybe is very uncommon in the gym that I should try out, or that everyone should try out?
That's actually a tough one because I don't do anything that extraordinary. I honestly sometimes I'll like get TikTok videos or something that are like, this is the fastest way to grow your outer tricep, and I'll mix that in, that's actually a real story. I've been doing some stuff that's like overhead extensions,
Mm.
supposed to like work out the tricep more. So I'll actually say in the last like year, I've been doing a lot of forearm stuff. Like I really enjoy back workouts, and it's always been a strong point for me. And then I always like do bicep burnout to do it. But like probably for the last year, when I go to do the end of those workouts, I do reverse grip curls. And if you get a bar or even just free weights and keep keeping your hands like this, keeping the thumbs over, keeping your elbows in tight, and doing curls like that, you know, really, really pushes the forearms. You can do a bunch of those along with like some hammer curls. And yeah, I've definitely noticed a difference in like, you know, I think even like just like a lot of the back workouts, you have a little extra strength, you have more grip strength, which is supposed to be kind of good for overall wellness. And so yeah, that's kind of a unique one that I think a lot of people miss. I didn't really ever do them, that I've been liking.
I'll go check it out. I mean, whatever I can do to look like you, Sean, I'm gonna do. So,
Okay,
thanks again,
this
man.
video is just here so we can pretend like I'm jacked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks again, Sean. Appreciate you being here.
No, thanks a lot. Always great talking to you.